Now, very quickly, because Prachi was bullied in the scariest place on the world. She was bullied in the open internet. When something like that happens, how can an entire community stand by its students? So how can schools, how can parents stand by students? How can they support them? And even when cases are taking place within a school, because that's very common, cyberbullying taking place online between students that are in a school every day. How can schools better deal with it? How can families better deal with it? To understand exactly that, we spoke to the Sri Ram Millennium School Gurugram principal, Anuradha Gupta. We asked her to come on TBC this morning to tell us a little bit more about the school context. Anuradha ji, thank you so much for joining us this morning on CNN News 18. Ma'am, can you tell us, how do schools stand by their students? In a case like Prachi's case in particular first, which is something that's happened on the open internet, it's not something that's happened within the school. What can a school do? What do schools do when things like this happen? When you have students that are trolled, what do you usually tell? Have incidents like this happened? Just give us the context.
See, namaste first. And the thing is, this is a situation which is very grave, what happened with Prachi. And as a school, what I would say, or any individual for that matter, one needs to stand by the student. One needs to comfort the student, sensitize the other students in the school, the teachers, everyone, so that it's not discussed, it's not in the school, it's not discussed so much, so that the child doesn't really feel singled out. We need to see that the trolling that has happened, that somewhere has to stop. We need to again talk to the child and tell the child that that's something not about her looks, or his looks, or his personality.
Okay, but ma'am, this obviously was something that happened on the open internet very, very publicly. But when something is happening within the school, so for example, on Instagram, you have students bullying each other, Snapchat, you have students bullying each other. How do schools track that kind of activity? How do schools come to know?
It's a difficult situation where they have they don't use their actual names. They have their accounts by different names, but sometimes somewhere it's the children who inform. Sometimes someone else, if somebody sees a post and it's to do with the children of a particular school, we come to know from them. The moment we come to know, we try and work around it. And that's the only way of keeping a surveillance. And also ask parents to do so. Because in schools, we don't allow them to be using phones and the social media. So it's mostly at home that the social media is getting used, or the phones are getting used. So the parents have to be very aware, and we keep telling the parents, speaking to the parents, that they need to keep a check.
Okay, ma'am, lastly, I just want to understand from you, students, how do you get them to open up? Because today's younger lot, they're very intelligent. They may not necessarily want to listen to teachers, authoritative figures telling them how to use social media in the first place. So how do you get them to open up? What's the key there? What are the systems the school already has in place to empower students?
See, we do try and give examples. We try and talk to them. But again, what really works is experts from the domain who come and do workshops and who come and tell them, give them examples, show them examples, which is when they actually believe that this is happening and this can happen with them. So somewhere something. I won't say that they are absolutely convinced or they stop using the social media from the very next day, but somewhere they do become a little more careful. They do open up about things that they won't talk to their parents or to their teachers, because that's a third party, and they feel that they're not being judged, and what has happened will the others won't come to know. So they do open up and they do ask for advice. They do write to those experts and try and find out how they should go about. And we also, the schools also try and do workshops for the parents,
Okay.
so that the parents are more vigilant.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. And something you said there was really beautiful, that students need to know that they're not being judged in any way. Only then will they open up. So we thought we'd next go over to someone very special. We've spoken first to Prachi. We then after that spoke to a principal about how schools deal with it already. Now we wanted to take a look at solutions that already exist. So Anushka Jolly started her social venture. It's called Anti-Bullying Squad in August 2018. This is when she was just 9 years old. Now, her aim is to stop bullying in schools and campuses and make the world a much kinder, much more empathetic place. Anushka, it is awesome to have you with us this morning here on TVC. Thank you for joining us. A big congratulations. Tell us what made you start the app. You're 13 now. What have the last few years looked like?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that. It's been wonderful. I've been working on my cause for about 6 years now, since I was 9 years old, and it's been an incredible journey. I've met so many interesting people, and I've been able to impact 2 million students in 20,000 schools. And I got bullied myself. And then after that, I decided to take a small action by creating a blog website. I started taking sessions with schools and NGOs and doing some more groundwork. And then finally, I created an app called Kavach, which was initially a bullying reporting mobile app. And
Yeah.
now it's become an app for students and adolescents to take care of their well being and to deal with issues like bullying.
It is so awesome hearing about just how positive your attitude is. Last year, you received the Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Bal Puraskar, and just tell us about the moment in your life when you received the Bal Puraskar. What did it feel like? Tell us a little bit.
It was so unexpected. So I still remember how it went down. I had my like ninth grade midterm exams going on, and we had online school in Jan, and I was just kind of in class and sitting and just working on something, and then my mom like bursts into the room, and she's like smiling and she's crying and she's like, you got the award. At first I was like, what award? And I was so confused because we'd applied for it like very long back, and I had no hopes, no expectation that I would actually get it. So when she said that, it was really shocking. It took me a moment to process it, but I think it was just an incredible honor. It was probably like the best moment of my life, meeting our honorable prime minister and receiving the award from our honorable president. It was wonderful. I got to learn so many things from such knowledgeable people. It was just a very enriching few days that I got to spend amongst these stalwarts, really.
Hopefully, you have many, many more moments like that lined up for you in life. Tell us, how do you feel now when you have juniors, even seniors who actually come to you, they turn to you for advice?
First of all, I think, being somebody that people turn to for advice it always feels great. It always feels like you have a sense of responsibility. But most of all, I think when I look back on my childhood and instances where I've suffered, the first people that I have approached have been my seniors, my friends, or my cousins for that matter,
Right.
people who are like my peers within my age group, because I feel that they could understand my problem the most.
Yeah.
And I still remember instances that I felt the most helped by them. So now that I'm in that position, it definitely feels wonderful that I'm able to, help those who help me. But also, of course, there's a lot of responsibility in giving them the right information, pointing them to the right resources, and most of all, to ensure that my personal judgment is not getting in the way of helping anybody. Because at the end of the day, we are all humans, but I need to make sure that I'm creating that comfortable and safe space for kids and adolescents to come and talk to me and come and share their problems.
So, Anushka, you're also a student yourself, and I just want to ask you, sometimes when you're very young, you're scared of complaining to authorities about bullies because the fear is that authorities will come down on the bullies and then that could further make their bullying much worse for you. So I just want to ask, how do you help more and more people who are afraid to complain, afraid to report? How do you help them come out, have that courage?
And for reporting, I think what we could do is definitely create anonymous spaces. We could create more spaces for where people are not afraid to report, where people feel like, okay, it's safe. My information is not going out anywhere. There is a sense of privacy that's very important.
Okay. And lastly, a slightly more exciting question. What do you have planned for the future? Tell us. Is this venture something that you're going to continue to pursue throughout your life? Do you have other goals you want to pursue?
I definitely think that I found my calling, and I want to continue working on this for the rest of my life, on bullying, on adolescents, mental health. And I definitely do want to study. I want to get an education. I think for me, learning is a lifelong thing. So it's not going to be limited by whether I choose to get a traditional education or not. But that's for sure. I do want to study. Psychology is one thing I'm pretty interested in. But let's see. And for my future, I am also currently working on something called Kavach AI, which is I'm kind of creating an artificial intelligence companion for adolescents who can help them through any problem, any issue, who can be there for them, who can create that safe space that I'm talking about, and who can help them overcome their problems, empower them to see the solutions that is usually right in front of them. So Kavach AI is something that I'm really, really looking forward to, and that's something that's coming up in the near future, and probably something that I'm going to continue for a very, very long time.
Anushka, it's been such a pleasure to hear your journey. Thank you for joining us here on TBC. Okay, so we've just heard from two young girls, and both of them sounded so empowered. The girls, the kids are all right. Now that we've heard from schools and initiatives about what they're doing to tackle this problem, we thought we'd take you to the person that possibly deals with young kids in the closest manner. So we have with us Shrradha Sidhwani, who's with us right now. She's a therapist and she deals closely with students every single day. She also deals with their families. Let's go over to her first to understand more. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us this morning on CNN News 18. Ma'am, we just want to ask you first, the situation that we saw play out with Prachi, how would you tell her family, those who support her, to deal with it? Because we're hearing that they dealt very, very positively. They stood right by her side. They gave her very, very positive messaging. What do you think of the entire story? That was the correct response, right?
Yeah, I think Prachi's family has been very supportive, but unfortunately these scars last a long time. So with women, we know any type of facial hair features, comments on your body image, your being fat, thin, tall, short, is something that will go for a lifetime. So during her marriage, during her dating years, people can be very judgmental about it. So it's very, very important for the family to not evaluate and unconditionally accept the child as they are. So, we all have strengths and weaknesses. You have to accept the weakness of your child. So, a lot of times we do, as parents, as adults, accept the strengths. We are very proud of the strengths. We publicize it, we put it on social media. But it is unfortunately the weaknesses which we are very, very critical about. So they have to be very sensitive to, her perception of her body image, because this can have a lasting impact.
So I do want to ask you next. Tell us, what advice do you have for parents who are parents of, for example, 13 or 14-year-olds, where they may not have had that relationship already with their kids, but they're hoping to change it?
So I think parents today need to understand that our exposure of teenagers, preteens is very high on social media. So if you have allowed your child to be on a social media app, which is Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, you also have to do some kind of monitoring. So we have to have some form of parental control, negotiate the policies with your child. Yes, the children may find this controlling. Some of the children also develop spam accounts, which the parents are unaware of. So try to develop a friendly rapport, negotiate with the child about their safety, about their concerns, because soon you will know that their child is probably following dark pages, getting depressed and anxious because of the comments that come while they share their pictures online. So we are living in an extremely obsessive world of selfies, where children are seeking validation on these applications. So while we become very courageous to share our journey, share our narratives, we also get a lot of criticism and negative judgment and feedback. A lot of kids don't know how to handle that feedback. So, parents can sort of have this friendly dialogue, keep checking in on what is being shared, how much should we share, is it appropriate, not appropriate. Also teach your children to be sensitive to other people. So generally be more compassionate. So if you know somebody who's been trolled, try to step in there, ask your child to help the other peer. So this sort of peer counseling or peer support, or maybe like, the earlier speaker had said, anonymously report about it. There are WhatsApp groups also in which we've seen very high cases of bullying, and often enough we do have cases where schools have been very supportive once these cases have been brought about to the school counselors. So yes, please stand up, please be assertive enough for yourself and your friends.
Can you also tell us, Shraddha, this is a trickier question, but for younger kids who are 13, 14, what's the balance between surveilling them and respecting their privacy? Because something like seeing who they're following, I know many young students would say, that's a complete invasion of my privacy, mom, and maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe this is something that I should be allowed to exercise judgment on. So where do you decide that is something they should be allowed? What age? How do you go about setting up that framework?
So I think there's a lot of research coming in the field of mental health post-COVID. We have seen very, very high rates of depression, self-harm, anxiety, especially in the Western countries, now trickling down to India. There's a lot of research and policy making that needs to come into place. We have seen currently in the UK and the US that on a very fundamental level, parents have brought these issues up, and we are coming up with, Facebook, social media applications such as Instagram, fighting with them about teenage mental health. So soon enough, we are seeing that below 16 students may need some kind of monitoring. Instagram does have some alerts in case of self-harm. They are coming up with new applications and features like that. But however, until you are 16 years old or 18 years old, we know that neurologically the brain is not fully developed. So the decisions that your child may make may not always be correct. The child may reflect and may feel bad about it in the near future. So I think until you're 16, at least have some kind of negotiation with your child. What is very important here is to develop the trust. not become very, very controlling and authoritative. So give your child the responsibility to make decisions, but also keep guiding them in their journey.
So I just want to ask you, one of the things we've talked a lot about is just how important it is to not be judgmental of your child. I just want to ask you, how would you encourage parents to push their own boundaries in that manner? So to challenge their own ways of thinking so they can be more open to what it is that their child is bringing, their student is bringing in front of them.
So I think parents need more knowledge on what the teenage phase is. So from the preteens to the teens, we see a lot of biological, sexual, physical changes among kids. We have to sort of help them empower these changes because they feel very awkward. They start judging themselves. There's a lot of body shaming within themselves and from the outside. So parents have to understand this delicate phase of change. Also talk about it to their kids, about these changes will sort of pass away and you will maybe a better person in the near future or a better looking person. We have also seen in this idealistic perfectionist world with selfies and filters, we've seen a lot of teenage products coming out in the market. We had some ads yesterday on the shaving company and all that. I think we need to be sensitive to these things, and on a global level we need to stop this body shaming both for men and women.
Shraddha, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us here. This is a story that actually all of us have in common. We've all in some way been bullied when we were much younger, but today we hope that you've got a little bit more clarity on how students, on how schools, how communities are hoping to fight this problem. And they are actively fighting it. We also heard from two young, very optimistic young voices about the things